Rockefeller, Yale, and Harvard. Invited for interview in all of these places.
Rate my professor reactions.
We have limited resources, we have limited money, limited people, limited time. Time is the most important resource here.
The one thing that you wish you knew before you becoming a professor.
Not a specialist in that field who have no idea about biochemistry or molecular biology. Why is it important? So what a stupid desire,
Hello listeners, welcome back to another episode of Faculty Files. I'm Adia.
I'm Fatima.
And we are so excited to kick off this podcast with Dr. Polikanov, where we go beyond the classroom and get to know our professors a little bit more who shape our academic journeys so much. Today we have our fantastic guest, Dr. Polikanov, who is a biology professor at UIC. On top of being a professor, he is also advancing research in the field of molecular biology, specifically focusing on ribosome-targeting antibiotics. And in this episode, we will learn more about his journey into becoming a researcher as well as a professor, his thoughts on student success, and even some fun rapid-fire questions towards the end.
Let's start. Hello, Professor Polikanov. How are you doing today?
Hello, and thank you for having me, basically here. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, how is the semester is going so far? It's coming to an end.
Yes, so as usual, so the closer to the end of the semester, so the more hectic, so the professor life becomes.
Let's talk about your journey. So how did you get into academia? Is this like always a plan, or were you a very curious child that led to becoming a researcher?
I would say yes. And I always wanted to become a chemist. Initially, I was more interested in chemistry, but turned out, that I entered the School of Biology in Moscow State University later. So my parents are doctors. So both of them. And they also wanted me to become a doctor because many of our relatives are also doctors in the family and so on. That I was always asking Mom, how does the aspirin works? Why does when you take a pill, why the temperature goes down? And or Tylenol or like any other drug. And they were never able to answer the simple question. So they know how much they should prescribe. What to do if, let's say, somebody had a problem, an injury, what a surgeon need to do. But the mechanisms behind, so the what's going on, so how it works. So that was, I was always more interested in that rather than how to just simply fix it. And that was the main reason why I said, oh no, I want to go to medical school, and I would go to the actually academics, because academia is where you where you decipher those mechanisms.
So your preliminary education, it wasn't in the United States.
Yes, exactly. So I'm originally from Russia, and that's where I was born, that's where I grew up, and that's where I attended the undergraduate college, so which was in Moscow State University. So that's where I got my bachelor's and master's. But during my last year, I was actually invited to the States, to Rutgers University in New Jersey, in case I don't like the place. It's only for like 8 months. I don't like the country. I can always come back. So there's no reason not to do that. And actually, while still being last year in my master's, basically spent 8 months here in the States, in Rutgers, doing research. And that's a research, that then I came back and defended my Master of Science thesis and got my diploma, and then immediately came back to the graduate school here. So I got my PhD from Rutgers, as you can guess. So.
Okay. Do you think any of those education systems is perhaps better in the States versus Russia?
You know what? I can proudly call myself a product of the two systems. So because I was, one part of my education was from Russia, the other part was from the States. In academia, it was general assumption that if somebody presents results, like scientific results, it's enough to just dump that knowledge on the audience, and this is it. So if they should be able to see how genii is this stuff, or not genii, vice versa. So my professors here in the States, in the Rutgers, they were teaching us how to tell stories. So that it doesn't matter actually how profound and transformative the results of your research are. You need to explain why is it important. So what is there significant that you're trying to explain it to your grandmother, who is not a professor in biochemistry, by the way. So and still is a taxpayer and still wants to know why. I mean, this is important to the society because there's so many great questions, so many great things to study, right? And yet we have limited resources. We have limited money, limited people, limited time. Time is the most important resource here. And yet, how to prioritize what we want to study first, what we want to study. So these are all important aspects. I mean, so in doing that. So not a specialist in that field who have no idea about biochemistry or molecular biology, why is it important? So again, it's not that one is good, one is bad, it's just different. So, and this is actually how I try to teach my students, both in class and in the lab.
Yeah, I think I definitely see that in your class as well. Not too many professors, especially in chemistry in UIC, I've seen they don't explain why learning certain things is important, especially for example, organic chemistry. We're learning all these like reactions, but nobody really knows the significance. So nobody wants.
Yeah, then you come to biochemistry course. I mean, so and here you go. So all these nucleophilic attacks. I mean, so that you were tortured in organic chemistry. Here you see them in life, actually.
Right, and it does matter, so we do need to know them, and that changes students' perspectives, I think. All right, so the next question is, have there been any surprises or pivotal moments in your career so far?
I would say probably many times, which pops up in my head right away, is what actually when I was deciding where to go for the postdoc. So the academic career is the following. So just for those, I mean, who may not fully understand that. So it's like the undergrad, then you go to the graduate school to get your PhD, you go what's called postdoc. I mean, so in the scientific jargon, we call it being a postdoc, but essentially it's a postdoctoral training. This is the time of your life. I mean, so when you as a scientist basically have complete freedom, especially if you're in a great lab. I was looking for a postdoctoral position, and there were during my I wanted to stay in that same university, or very close. I mean, to where I lived. I mean, in New Jersey. And one of the professors he literally yelled at me. So he said, "Are you crazy? Why don't you want to try some other great schools? I mean, do you have family?" I said, not yet. So. I mean, do you have a mortgage? I mean, a house here in Rutgers, I mean, that keeps you here. No, nothing like that. So then why the hell do you want to stay here? So go see. I started to write to professors in Rockefeller, Yale, and Harvard. Invited for interview in all of these places. I mean, the lab in Rockefeller would have been the best. I mean, so they were structurally studying the RNA polymerases that I was studying biochemically during my graduate years. My next interview was at Yale with Tom Stites. I mean, so at the time, again, in terms of, the research, both labs, were very attractive to me. So I made my choice based on the desire to be able to drive a car. So again, some people say, "Are you idiot?" What a stupid desire! Go to New York. You don't need a car. So Rockefeller is in New York, is downtown Manhattan. So I say, yes, that's exactly why some people want to live there, and they don't like cars. They don't like driving. So that's okay. So, but I want it. So, and it doesn't matter which lab is it. It matters more to me. Okay, so. I'll explain why I'm saying this. I'm saying this because the values that you have at any given point, that's what determines your choice. So whatever is the most important for you today, right now, right? So again, you have a huge wish list of what you want, right? So, but there's always one thing which is at the top, and that one thing that is at the top will determine your entire choice. Because when I was thinking about going to Rockefeller, I said, "Oh my gosh, how I'm gonna live there?" So it's either long commute or I have to park the car. It's insane price for the parking, insurance, and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, I went to interview to Yale, and it was what I was looking for, a nice rural America, which is very, not a big city, exactly what I wanted. So again, in the hindsight, that was a very wise decision, but because a few years later, Tom became a Nobel Prize. So the research went well. So we had a lot of papers published. So and so on and so forth, right? But there's no way I could have known that at the time when I was making that decision. So these were some transformative events that affected my career tremendously. I have no idea where would I be if I would take that position from Rockefeller University.
Motivation. True. I feel like I've listened to some motivation now.
For a beginner, what would you say is what does one do if they choose industry? What is like the day-to-day basis of activities they would be doing?
Yeah. So the key difference is that in industry, I mean, you're certainly paid more. So, but you have much less freedom. So you exchange freedom for better pay. So depends on what your ambitions are.
And also, what's the one thing that you wish you knew before you becoming a professor or researcher?
I would say financial management and psychology. So very few people, I mean, know that or understand. Once you become a professor, so you are transitioning to completely new roles that you have not been prepared during your postdoc or any time before. So you're becoming, as I said, psychologist, you become a financial manager, system administrator for computers, engineer, plumber, electrician, and only the lastly, you are still remaining that scientist whom you were at the previous stage. So, and all of those other qualities, nobody have ever prepared you. So the way I would say American academic system works is that once you are ready to take on this very responsible position of becoming a faculty, right? So that the university gives you a lab, the money to start that lab, right? To some extent, this is teaching how to swim by throwing in the middle of a pond. So, and see whether you will survive or not.
Seems quite overwhelming. Like you said, these skills develop over time.
Exactly.
Let us move on to some academic insights. So, how would you define a successful student?
A student who I know will be successful is the one who is curious, who dares to learn new things because of the internal desire rather than to get a good grade or like, I don't know, to pass the course. I mean, things like that. Do stuff that you like on doing. Again, I'm not just making it for the sake of argument. It's actually, I am very interested in rocket engines and how airplanes work and fly. So what does it mean that I'm interested? That means that like when I have free time, I don't know, watch YouTube, I read some interesting articles about that. Again, nobody asks me to do it. Again, this is not my job. This is like my free time. So somebody who is interested is not going to be waiting for the cue from a professor to start learning the glycolysis, for example. So
how have the student and their learning style changed since you were a student versus now after you started teaching?
I mean, your question is a very good question. So, but it's difficult for me to answer it for two reasons. I mean, mainly because I was a student, let's say, in one country, in one system. So, and now I'm teaching students in, and I don't know whether it's just because of the, like I'm in a different environment, right? That I'm doing that, or it's because actually, as you said, the time have changed. I mean, and the students have changed. I mean, so. More and more rare that you see someone who is genuinely curious. I mean, so as someone who is teaching, I mean, so I recognize that phenotype very easily because the eyes kind of spark. So it's not that you're talking to a professor. You can distinguish between somebody is asking a question just to make sure that he understands it for exam, and somebody asking that similar question about the same topic, say, I don't know, protein synthesis or RNA synthesis. When genuinely curious. I mean, so.
What would you say that a top grade student, like an A+ student, missing an assignment and not getting an extension to it, and then because of that, the GPA drops? So, should the policies be strict or flexible, in your opinion?
It should be strict, and the reason is the following. And even if that student would know. Again, I'm not saying that this is exactly what we instituted, but if I were to answer specifically your question, I would say it should be strict because so what is university? This is the place where we and how the universities appeared is that we are basically studying here scenarios of how the sailing the ship over there in the ocean with rough waters would be, right? How would here we training the future generations of scientists, of workers, of basically the people who will lead our society, but like 20 years from now, right? When we learn things, when we train people, it's okay to make mistakes. It's no big deal. It's no problem. So, but when let's say you make that mistake, being let's say a doctor, right, or being a pilot, or being something else, you don't have the right for that. So And so from the very beginning, when the training starts, the student should understand, so the cost, or responsibility for this. This policy would have nothing to deal with again, A or B. These are awesome grades. It's not going to affect, adversely. The future career. So, to learn in a lesson, of what is responsibility. So this is, I think, is very important. So that you should not tolerate that, because then going forward, so if you would always know that the deadlines do not mean anything, if all assignments can be extended, right? So then basically, if a patient dies or not, no big deal. Using this as a good example of why it should be strict, just to emphasize, the downstream foster or responsibility. This is something that is very important to foster. So,
like learning from the mistakes, so that
yes, exactly. So that later in real life, whoever you will be, like whatever professional you will be, right? So you will be treating the situations much more maturely, so that there is always a consequence.
Would you say that then missing an assignment and having your grade be an A or B, students shouldn't place too much importance on the grade itself, but rather the outcome of the course, whether they've learned the material or not, even if it's an A or a B?
I would always say that it is the outcome of the course, rather than, you know what I mean. In the biochemistry course that I teach almost 10 years now, I was lucky to have a lot of great students. So the ones which are like in all lectures, asking very good questions, clearly understanding materials. And I was glad that they were even coming to lectures, because it was great to chat with them after, since they know a lot, and it was interesting. But I also had at the same time students who were struggling. So, and it always happens. Students who struggle in the course. And I would say my best reward, for the course, was not the fact that those, who are great got the A's. I'm super glad for them and proud. That's true. But I hope you understand what I'm saying. That I was more rewarded by knowing that the ones who started, let's say, in our biochemistry course with C in the first exam, then get B minus and B plus and maybe A minus or B plus at the last exam. So that those who grew throughout the modules of the course, and that was, to me, and still is, and always will be, the most rewarding. So for those, who actually showed some great effort in learning. The greatest surgeons, are not necessarily all finished the Harvard Medical School. So many of them could have finished UIC easily, UIC Medical School, right? And it is the same. It is the same exact medicine, the same exact mathematics or biology that is being taught in different universities, right? They have different rankings. It's exactly the same stuff. So what is important is how good you are after, rather than what is written in your diploma. So rather than what grade you got. So grades is very subjective. So that doesn't matter.
Moving on to the future perspectives for students, this is sort of regarding AI. I think a lot of students have been thinking about this. AI usage for students, I completely understand, is not okay, because it, for multiple reasons, perhaps it does not help with the learning process completely, and students become extremely dependent on AI for not just learning, but also using it to bypass some of the assignments and reduce their workload. But a new question that has sort of arose amongst our audience is that professors have also started using AI, and so has researchers. Recently, we were discussing in my friend's, she's doing her master's, there was a presentation that she attended, and it was very clear that the student had used AI to type up his report. And in cases like that, do you think professors genuinely benefit from AI, or have a possibility to benefit from AI? For example, using it to make their teaching material, assignments, quizzes, tests. If so, why?
if you use an AI only to sort of like structure the sentences, I don't know, like to make it more clear, I think, I mean, there is nothing wrong with it. But it should not replace, I mean, basically the information, I mean, that you want to convey. So therefore, you have to know that information in first place, right? So you have to learn it yourself to be able to see whether when AI is writing something, some complete nonsense, I mean, right? So. So basically, you need to be a judge of that, right? If you can be a judge of that, then, I mean, why not? I mean, so if you already know that means that you already know the material. You're basically checking how good is AI. So, but if you become slave of AI, that is probably not acceptable. So because rather than reading a textbook or an article, a scientific textbook or an article, right, and learn that, you are asking this artificial intelligence to kind of teach you something that may not even be a part of our knowledge today. You can use it, but use it smart. That's the short.
Even though you use it, you should be able to analyze it.
You should be able to. You should be above it, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
we will enter like a fun rapid fire questions. So please try to answer each question in one sentence or less.
okay.
Yeah.
It's challenging.
Yeah, it's a rapid fire. So, most overrated academic trend.
Medical school. Like everybody wants to become what I was talking before, like a lawyer, or I don't know. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. I don't know how good or bad is it.
If you could teach any subject outside of your field, what would it be? I think we already know based off of a previous answer.
Astronomy.
Are you a coffee person or a tea person?
Both, but more tea.
What is your favorite book or movie?
From my childhood, I would say Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. So, to my shame, and your audience probably should not know that. So, one of the greatest scientists, I mean, who lives today, who also got the Nobel Prize with my doctoral advisor, same Nobel Prize, Venki Ramakrishnan. He wrote 2 books. He wrote Gene Machine. So this is about the history that led to the ribosome. But that's not the one. He wrote another book, which is called Why We Die. So, and I read it, and it's, I would say, to somebody who is not related to biology at all, not talking about molecular biology. So that book would be very interesting and fascinating because he talks about very complex topics in a very simple language. So, and I enjoyed listening it and also reading it.
Are you an early bird or night owl?
Night owl. Yeah. So every time I try to switch my regime to waking up early, going early to bed, I end up not being able to do so.
Everyone's wired differently, so.
Yeah.
What is one word, in your opinion, that describes your teaching style?
That's the toughest question today. So I would say accessibility, but I need to elaborate on that. So in the first lecture of, usually in the first lecture of my model, I share a quote, I mean, by Albert Einstein, who get used to say that if you cannot explain it simply, you don't understand it yourself, or you don't understand it enough. So a knowledge without understanding what it is, right? So it's useless. And by word accessibility, I mean like to make it, to be able to dumb it down so that even the most complex topics, I mean, that you teach become accessible.
Yeah. Also, what is one favorite quote or motto that always stick in your heart, even your highest moments, your lowest moment? What's the one favorite quote that you always remember?
I usually have so many quotes. I mean, and now I'm like, I just shared one which I really like, but it's probably by Albert Einstein. So make it as simple as possible.
Moving on to one of the last sections, that is Rate My Professor Reactions. So this is just one rating that we found online. All of them were really nice, so it was hard picking out the best one. They all kind of say very similar things, but we've picked out one, and this student has said, he is the absolute best professor I've ever had at UIC. Absolutely amazing man who truly cares about his students and what he is teaching. Take this course with him if you can. And this is as of April 19th, 2024. So.
Well, I'm flattered. So am I blushed?
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah. I'm very glad to hear that. So.
All right. We have come to an end of this podcast, and in one sentence, what's one piece of non-academic advice that you would give to your students? Any motivations for finals coming up?
Take care of your health, I would say.
All right.
So when studying in classes, I mean, yeah, do study that hard. I mean, but don't forget about the
Oh,
yes, because later on, when you will get all your diplomas, when you will get everything, so you will be really efficient and great professional. So only when being healthy.
I think that wraps our conversation. It was such a great conversation with you. Thank you so much. We are so honored to have you as our guest in our podcast. And thank you so much, Professor Polikanov, for joining us and sharing your insights. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, follow Faculty Files and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more candid conversation with professors. Let us know what topics you want to discuss and cover next. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next episode of Faculty Files. Thank you.